Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not home today. I'm not in the office. I'm actually in Italy. So for this last episode of our book club. So welcome. The live stream is meant to start in a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to talk about something that I wanted to share, which I also mentioned last week. We're starting a new mastermind group, the SustainABLE Mastermind. So it's based on the book that you know so well right now. And so the mastermind is a group of people who have in common a love for sustainability. Some of them are professionals, and some of them are wannabe sustainability professionals. And what we do is to gather together and we do training and we do coaching on soft skills for sustainability. It's a year-long program starting on the 8th of September. If you want to join, now is the time. It's small groups, so they're very intimate. It's great and really good fun as well. And so either go to the website or in the description below, you will find a discount code if you want to join with a little discount code from YouTube. I really look forward to welcoming some of you in the mastermind starting on the 8th of September. And if you want to know more about it, obviously today is the 28th of August. So for some of you that are watching it today or tomorrow, the day after, on Tuesday, the 1st of September, I'm going to have a webinar explaining all about the SustainABLE Mastermind. Anyway, so without further ado, as I said, today is the last episode of the SustainABLE Book Club. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it was, cracking 6 weeks. I loved, explaining the book bit by bit, and hopefully even those of you that are watching after this live stream are going to find it valuable when you're watching your own time. So today we're going to talk about, there you go, resilience and grit, but also project and people management. Now, if you want to let me know whether the chat is actually working, the live chat, please type hello or something there, because it's been quite temperamental throughout the whole live streaming experience. So anyway, thank you, YouTube. So starting from resilience and grit, which we hear about a lot, I think, in these days of coronavirus and, how we need to be resilient, etc. Now, obviously, if you work in sustainability, you're driven by your passion and your values, and we say that many, many times. But like with anything in life, when you actually start the reality of things, you might feel disappointed because there are setbacks. One of them could be a client who is not completely receptive to your ideas. And another one could be, the situation like the one we got right now, okay? So what do you do when you got setbacks? And that's the way you respond to setbacks, and the way you bounce back from setbacks is what we call resilience. Now, a couple of hints there and a couple of tips. The first step to become more resilient in face of adversity is really not to take it personally. So the more personally you take it, whatever it is, the more you're going to get stuck on that bad experience. Another thing is you need to find alternative ways to channel your frustrations. So if you're frustrated because your clients don't really respond to your, to the way you speak or to what you're telling them, then you need to find a way of getting rid of that frustration, whether that is through, self-care and, exercise and meditation, etc., and things that we discussed right at the beginning of this, book club, until you're actually strong enough once again to influence others. Because mental strength and mental toughness, or grit, as we will discover in a minute, is really important to become influential and to really keep your personality strong. So grit and mental toughness is well, grit is mental toughness to obtain your goals. So grit is when you have a goal and you keep on going ahead until you are, basically until you achieve it. And in the book, I made the example of Richard Branson, who you might like him, you might not like him, but you have to give to the guy that he's not one that takes a no for an answer. And actually started really badly. He started as a dyslexic, so having lots of difficulties to be at school. He founded some 400 businesses, and lots of them actually failed. The majority of them failed. But that's great. Success for him is the goal. And so he keeps on going, is persistent until basically achieves what he wants. Now, there is a little disclaimer there. Obviously, if you keep on banging your head against the wall until it bleeds, maybe you should stop. Meaning that if something is actually either impossible to achieve, like literally impossible to achieve, or if it's not aligned with your values, then maybe you realize it's not something that you want to do after all, then stop. You don't have to, it doesn't have to make you ill. That's important. Again, your health and your mental health is paramount in that sense. So if you are familiar with James Clear, whom I mentioned a number of times in my book, and especially with the book he wrote about habits called Atomic Habits, I'd say, buy it because it's amazing, or get it, get a friend to loan it to you or whatever. Really, really good book. But he talks about grit and how you can develop a grit. And if you don't want the book, just go on his website because he got so much amazing material around self-improvement. And is a guy that's really brilliant because he does a lot of research as well. So it's all like scientifically backed tips that he gives and methodologies. So when he talks about grit, and I really agree with his method and how you can develop that grit, first of all, so the first step is really to define what grit is for you. So what do you need to do? What you want to do is you keep on blogging, for example, until every person in the world has read your blog, or because sustainability is one of your values, do you volunteer on a regular basis? So you need to identify what is your passion and an ultimate goal. That's what makes you a success, because you could keep on focusing on your goal and you keep on showing up. So if you are driven by values in your work, then you have to keep at it. That's basically it. You need to understand and identify clearly what your goal is, and then keep at it. And a very important element of that is to believe in yourself. So a change in mindset is absolutely needed. So lots of people I know, even in my family, they always say, no, I can't do that because, I'm not good enough for that, or, I can't present, I hate it, I'm not good enough. That sort of behavior and self-talk is absolutely toxic for your self-belief. And obviously your goals are less achievable because you are not in charge of your thoughts. So you are effectively bringing yourself down when you need to be your number one fan. Okay, second step to build grit is to have and celebrate small tangible wins. So along the way, possibly your goal is something that is going to materialize in some time. It's really important to celebrate the small wins. And it's like a muscle that you need to exercise on a regular basis. You have to show up consistently based on your commitment. And every day you need to have a little stepping stone towards your goal clearly identified for you. So, people believe that artists, for example, only work when they are in the mood, or only work when they got an inspiration for it. But actually, that's not true. True artists show up and work and exercise their creative muscles every single day. And they spend many, many, many long hours. I think I heard, in order to master any type of job or activity or art, you have to spend at least 10,000 hours on it. And that's a lot of work. So People that really are serious about their goals, so they show up every day. So it's not enough to do it something once and then walk away from it and wait for inspiration, because that's not actually the way professionals go about it. So you need to really understand what is that commitment for you. What do you need to do to show up every day and achieve your goal? For example, it could be you need to plan your day better, or your week better, or your month or your year better, or you need to exercise your assertiveness on a regular basis, or you need to read more about your profession so that you are up to speed. But these have to be activities that you decide to do on a regular basis. Because, and that's step 3, you need to build strong habits and stop relying on motivation. Motivation is super overestimated. We see that every year for, New Year's Eve and the first, the 1st of January, when we got our New Year resolutions. That's when we start having these beautiful plans about how life is going to be changed and transformed by whatever new thing. But actually, motivation for that fades very, very quickly. I think I've read some research saying that after 3 weeks at maximum, 90% of people have lost that motivation that they had on the 1st of January. So what makes people, say, commit to not buying anything new for a year? Like someone I know, or, you must have heard on, read on the newspaper that there are people that commit, for example, to buy nothing new for a year. What happens at the first hurdle? Do they fall? Do they keep on going? Thing is, people that are serious about their goals, they have a habit. They create a habit. So they take the guesswork and the mental fatigue of making a decision every day out of the equation. They just do it, like Nike used to say. And the thing is, you don't need to be more courageous, more talented, more intelligent. You just need to be more consistent. That's all. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals, like I was saying before. Now, obviously, for sustainability professionals, we have a big advantage, which is we have higher values and purpose that drive our motivation, and that should be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So theoretically, because this is part of our value set, your motivation to say not to buy any plastic, single-use plastic, shouldn't phase after 3 weeks in January. It should actually keep you going. Of course, when coronavirus comes and everything starts to become single plastic again, you will be challenged, but then hopefully you will do your best to keep on following your values and your motivation. The other thing is, think about your day. So if your motivation is, for example, so your goal is to write a blog on a regular basis, and you think, well, I would love to write a blog on sustainability, but actually I haven't got time, which is, an excuse that I heard so many times. Think about that. Make the most of your time. You sleep for 8 hours, hopefully, if not less. You work for 8 hours, hopefully, if not more. What about the other 8 hours you got in the day? What do you do with them? Obviously, you need to have family time, your own time. Then maybe rethink your free time, because with those 8 hours, you can do a lot of things. And of course, we need to eat and we need to, get washed and whatever. But chances are you still have pockets of time during the day that you can use towards your goals. For example, I'll give you my personal example, which is also in the book. I used to commute for 2.5 hours each way to go to my previous job. And I've done that for 3 whole years. That's a lot of hours on a train. Really a lot of hours. It topped, 5 hours, if not more. At the beginning, I was desperate. I was crying every day, and I was like, oh my God. But then I decided to get organized. And so I started reading a lot more. I started writing. I was studying for my dissertation, for my master's degree. I started meditating. I started doing a lot of things that actually brought me closer to my goals. And I'm sure you can find those pockets of time, even if it's not 2.5 hours, which is a lot, or even 5, but surely you can find 30 minutes here and there to keep at what you're doing. And it's almost like you use a piggy bank and you put a little coin in there and you think, oh, it's just, 5p or 10p. But I bet you've seen how when you were little, if you didn't break that piggy bank for a year, at the end of the year, you had a very full piggy bank that was actually serious money. That's all I'm asking you, to find little pockets of time that you can use, like a piggy bank, to fulfill your goals little by little. Okay, so that's grit and resilience. Hopefully that was useful. Now, because that's a very short chapter, I decided when I was planning the book club to put it together with people and project management, which is one of the other core skills that I think a sustainability professional should really master. So I bet if you are a sustainability professional of some sort, maybe a consultant, chances are you are an incidental project manager, meaning you find yourself project managing projects without having probably the formal training for it. So the thing is, you might find yourself coordinating projects, coordinating teams, having to work against deadlines, quality, having a budget to deal with, etc., etc. And sometimes you find yourself in that position without having authority over the team because maybe you are an external consultant. Now, in the book and in what I'm going to tell you today, I'm not trying to train you as a project manager because there are plenty of courses out there that can do that for you. But what we decided to do at Green Gorilla, and that's also one of the master classes on project management, is really to give you the little nuggets of project management that can be useful for you to carry out your job as a sustainability project manager, because there are certain things you need to be aware of, which might help you because of the specifics of the profession you're in. If you have, however, a role which is actually a formal role as a project manager and you don't have the training for it, I would strongly suggest that you actually ask your employer, or you pay for that yourself, and go and do a project management formal qualification, which is what I've done at some point when I realized that my work was actually all project management and very little else. Okay. So let's go through some of the basics of project management for sustainability professionals. Now, in general, project management is basically the juggling of three elements: time, quality, and costs. So these are the three elements that you need to look after. Time in terms of, the project length, and projects have a finite time because they have a start and they have a finish, as opposed to day-to-day management of, for example, the operational company. Quality, because at the end of the process, you have to have an outcome of some sort, and hopefully the client has given you a brief with the quality that they want this to be at. And then you have cost. Obviously, any project is going to imply some costs, and then you need to keep within the budget that's been given to you. Now, I have a really nice graphic in here, and hopefully you can see it, which is this one here. Here, there you go, where you can see the triangle of time, quality, and costs. But on the side, you will see there are risks and benefits as well. So you have to balance, so while you keep within the time, quality, and cost constraints, you have to balance risks and opportunities, which are the same, I would say, two faces of the same coin. What's different for sustainability projects? And so what do you need to be aware of if you are, project managing a sustainability project? First of all, the time. So sustainability projects don't finish when the project is finished, if you think about it. If I am producing this book, what happened of it after I finish publishing it and someone has bought it? And that's the end of my project, right? My project was to write a book, and at the end of the book, I got a physical product, okay? So that's my book. But if I am a sustainability professional, I want to know what happens to the book during the lifetime of the product itself. So will people read it? Will pass on to someone else? It's going to end up in a library, in a second-hand shop, whatever. And what happened at the end of its usable life? So when it's, reduced to nothing, it is all like ripped and, I can't read anymore from it. What do you do with it? Do you get rid of it? How do you get rid of it? Do you recycle it? Which is what I want to know. Hopefully, a paper book is an amazing resource because you can recycle it completely, entirely recyclable. And so it goes back into a circle of life, okay? So time of a product that is a sustainable product, or we say any product really, doesn't stop at the end of the project. Quality. For sustainability professionals, that can be, your client wants an environmental certification to certify the quality of the product. They might want to become, if you invest in a company, maybe they want to become a B Corp, or they want to have an assessment to using one of the environmental assessment tools out there, especially for buildings. You got BREEAM, you got LEED, you got WELL, etc. Or you might want to think about the procurement of the product and the project itself. So what procurement routes are you using? What materials are you using? So the quality is actually inherently linked to the sustainability of the materials you use as well. And it's not just, okay, the product works, it's a book, it's fine. No, actually, what kind of paper is this? Is this FSC paper or what else? So that's part of the quality of a sustainable product. Ethical labor comes into it as well because it's part of the quality, and there is no sustainable anything unless we look at the social aspects as well. And in particular with social, let's look at the cost, which is the third element of our project. Do we have just a monetary cost? Absolutely not. We need to look at the impact on the environment, which is the cost on the environment. And we need to look at the social cost. So if, for example, my pretty dress has been produced in a sweatshop and it cost me £3 in one of these big high street places, and is it just the cost that I'm looking at? Or as a sustainability professional, I should actually look at the cost on people that produce it in a very, very poor conditions. By the way, this is charity shop. I pretty much just buy things in charity shops exactly for this reason, because I want to give them a second lease of life. And for me, it just is a no-brainer. So once we understand what time, quality and cost implications our project have, we need to analyze what risks, but also what opportunities the project presents. But you would think, okay, nowadays it's simple, with the automation and everything to have less risk. Absolutely, yes. But how key, just to make you understand how key your role is to prevent hazards. And so risk can be intended as a threat, something bad, or something good, like an opportunity. So your role as a project manager is really to understand in advance of what these risks and opportunities are going to be. As an example, again, is cited in the book, I wrote about the Tottenham football stadium, which was meant to be finished in 2018, I think September, but it took an extra 6 months. The budget, and so the cost went for 400 million to 875. That's more than double the original budget. And we heard a lot of things happening on site. For example, people doing drugs on site, people coming to install certain elements of the building, like the ventilation system, while the electricians haven't been there yet. So they had to redo their work 3 times. So basically, there was no coordination, no complete lack of coordination. Why? Because there wasn't any authority given to the project manager. Actually, the various trades on site were directly responding to the client, who didn't have any project management experience or qualification. So the contractor, who's usually also the project manager on site, didn't have any authority, couldn't check anything. It was total shambles. And that's what you don't want to have, obviously. So the project manager is really, really key. It's for projects to go in the way they have to go and to coordinate everything to success. But in particular, there are three things that affect a project that you need to be aware of if you are an incidental project manager. First of all, people. So people are the biggest asset of any operational projects, but also its biggest liability. You need to look at your client needs, so people, but also your team needs. And both have to really coincide. And sometimes we are biased, sometimes we interpret things in a wrong way. So there is always the human element in it. So the best thing to do in that sense is to just listen. Listen to your clients, listen to your team attentively, and really try and understand their needs. So that's the first point. Another thing is sometimes you come in as an external person, so you're not part of the team. And there is a bias towards people that are external. They don't know you well, they won't listen to you perhaps. So use all your influencing techniques that we discussed also in the past weeks of this book club, because you will need them to influence your team. Another problem that happens in projects is that the responsibilities are not clear. So there is no exact clarity who should do what. And especially in complex projects like a building project, an infrastructure project, or really any project to be fair, but especially complex ones, and when you have many players doing different things at the same time, it's very important to establish clear responsibilities. And in that sense, I suggest in the book to use the Rashi matrix, which is a matrix where you put who is responsible, so R, who is accountable, who is supporting with perhaps information or maybe with man hours, whatever, who should be consulted and who should be informed. Once we understand who needs to do what for the different tasks in a project, then you're already halfway there to have clear responsibilities so that work is not duplicated, efforts is not duplicated. You got a proper way of planning who does what during the time of the project. One risk that you might incur when this is not done is that you end up being everything sustainability. So because they pay you to perhaps be the consultant for sustainability in a project, then there is an assumption that you need to do it all. But actually, as we know, sustainability is a team effort, and this is worth reminding everyone or telling everyone right at the beginning of the project, because you can't possibly do it alone unless it's a very, very small project. But usually you need some help. The other thing is often people work in silos. Often people work, they do their little bit and then they pass on that little bit to someone else. And there is no coordination or no integration, I would say, between the various bits of a project. And that happens a lot in construction projects. And again, just because this is my background, it comes quite easy for me to refer back to that. But obviously, this is something that can be applied to any other sustainability project out there. So I came across this integrated design process, which was actually originally developed for British Columbia Green Building Roundtable, and is a number of key principles applicable to buildings. So the key principles are that the project needs to have a high performance outcome, that it's very well defined in terms of environmental and social goals, which is something that is often missing, like a proper sustainability brief to have right at the beginning with some proper goals set up. Obviously, you need to keep within the constraints of budget and schedule. That's normal. But I think the key two elements in this process, which I think I would invite you to replicate in your projects if you can, is to have a collaborative and multidisciplinary team with a shared vision from day one. So it doesn't matter if you're if your team has assigned a piece of the project and then someone else will come later, everyone should sit around the same table from day one to decide exactly what needs to be done, to give each other support and expertise on the bits that we can't possibly know everything. So, for example, again, in the construction process, if the contractor, who is the person who's going to build the building, comes only at the end, the architects might make big mistakes because they don't know practically how something is going to be built. So it's always important and very useful to have everyone involved so that mistakes can be avoided, and also everyone works in harmony much better that way. The second element that I think is really important of the integrated design process is that to have an iterative process. So you learn from your mistakes. You learn from what you've done in the past that is wrong, and you don't do it again. And again, going back to construction, very often an architect, for example, finishes his work at design stage, walks away, end of. He never hears about it again. He doesn't know how the building performs. He doesn't know whether this design worked or not. And that's a very big shame, because you have to reinvent the wheel every time. Not only that, you think something works and then in practice it doesn't work. So you haven't learned anything, and you keep on making the same mistakes over and over again. The thing with IDP as well, with the integrated design process, is that it is different every time, because it has to be tailored to the actual project, to the actual context, and everything that is going on. Okay, so it's very important that there is a very bespoke approach, and that's why it's even more important that everyone is involved from the beginning. So if you can integrate as much as you can this approach in your projects, I think you're going to be in for a win. Now, you might come to me and say, yeah, okay, all good, but what happens when I'm new to the team, or I'm an external consultant, they won't listen to me, they are resistant to sustainability, they say they always did things in a certain way and I'm coming to disrupt? Well, I would say, show them, in first and foremost, what's in it for them. You can't come from your, we discussed that when we're talking about selling and influencing people. Super important to show people what's in it for them. You can try the various influencing techniques, like using logic, inspire them with the vision of the future, which is going to be obviously better, with sustainability than without. You can use fear as well to scare them for the consequences, but you have to show them what's in it for them. The other thing is, in order to make them more, or yourself more appealing for them, you need to make their lives easier. Because one of the arguments I hear from design teams when I work as a sustainability consultant is, I haven't got time for that. We already have, have work up to here. What do you want us to do extra? Thing is, you need to make their lives easier. Otherwise, they're not going to be on board. So you have to create templates if you can, and checklists, and hold their hands as much as you can, and be there for them. Be there to help them. You can't just set a task and walk away and come back in 3 months' time. That doesn't work completely. They're going to hate you. So you really need to help them. Another thing you could do is to find some advocates within the team. There is always someone that might be actually happy to help you, because maybe sustainability is also a value for them. So it's really important to get a champion within within the project that can help you advocating your point. And one thing also that I notice with my clients in consultancy is that they want to be reassured that you have everything under control. And I tell you what, you don't have everything under control. Well, not always anyway. So it's important to reassure them that this is actually happening. And sometimes, I'm not saying you need to lie, but try and have everything under control. Do things in a way that you can have your risk under control, that you know what's going to happen, and you can review those risks on a regular basis. Bottom line is, how can you help them to help you? That's the main thing you need to do. Another resistance you might find is resistance to change. Like I was saying before, some people have done their job always the same way, for 30 years plus. So when you come and say, no, actually, you need to provide me with more documentation, or you need to do things slightly different, or you need to buy a different material, they might be resistant to that. What you can do in that sense, to address that problem, is to align their operations with the new sustainability processes. So if they will have already a process for doing things, one thing you can do is to try and fit sustainability in, so there is no big change, big trauma, big effort. Because sustainability, if you really want sustainability to become a no-brainer, it has to be easy to implement. It's fine for some of us who are advocates of sustainability to do the extra mile to be more sustainable. But until sustainability is a complete no-brainer, it's easy to implement, and so you don't even think about it. We have some work to do to make that happen. The other thing is, when people don't trust you, like I was saying before, because you're new, you're external to the team and everything, it's absolutely normal and human to be a bit afraid of the stranger. But try and understand them and try to understand their point of view. What you can do is to show them that you are on their side. So as I was saying before, help them with templates, with checklists, with anything that you can help them with. Show them that you are addressing their concerns. Listen to them really attentively. Gather their feedback and try and help them the best you can. Show them what's in it for them. Help them with their problems. Okay, so that's for people. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat, or if the chat doesn't work, I got LinkedIn open if you want to send me a message there. Okay, so another two really important thing to take into account in a project. So we talked about people, technology. And when I mean technology, is anything new happening in the project, perhaps, or a new process being experimented, a new material being used. With sustainability, lots is new. Lots. In order to be sustainable, sometimes we need to use a new process, and we need to use new suppliers. Anything new that is technology related or process related, we will talk about in a second. But we need to assess what is the risk inherent in using, for example, a new technology, a new product, a new thing. So the way of doing that is to do your due diligence and effectively do a risk management analysis. A risk analysis, and have a risk log of some sort that you can have to review on a regular basis. And that's very, very important, because with any new technology, there are inherent risks and opportunities that you need to keep at bay. One good thing to do would be to model anything new before it's actually implemented, and there's plenty of software out there to model anything at all in life. So it's very important to try something before it's actually implemented, if you can, like in a virtual world. The simple and age-old SWOT analysis will work. So you try the strength, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threat in anything new that you are implementing. And the other thing is, look at your team and see whether they are capable, would be capable to cope with that particular technology or that particular change. See whether you need to seek external consultants, perhaps, or you need to train people to become capable to deal with that technology. The third element of to be aware of in a project and need to keep an eye on are processes. Now, I am sure you found yourself in the past, hopefully not now, in a system or with a project that doesn't have a system or a process. Or maybe you found yourself on the opposite, in a project where bureaucracy and hierarchy are so strong that it's really difficult to progress in any way. So these are the two ends of the spectrum, when you don't have any process or structure or hierarchy, and when you have too much process and structure and hierarchy. You need to analyze the project at the beginning to see what the process is, whether there is a process. If there isn't a process, then obviously create some that makes sense for you and your client and the team. If there is too much of a process, then calculate your time accordingly. Because if you can't change something, which probably you can't, especially if you're an external consultant, then it's worth analyzing how you can get in the quickest way from A to B, so from the beginning to the end of the project. So it's very important to analyze anything that can cause a delay or extra costs, or an extra level of approval, for example. That sort of thing needs to be really scoped out right at the beginning. And also in certain projects, time is a really sensitive, it's a really important issue. Generally in any project, but especially for sustainability, and again, my experience with sustainability in buildings means that if you are carrying out, for example, a certification, then certain things must be done right at the beginning of the process and of the project. You can't wait, because you're going to lose points and credits in that particular assessment process. So time is really key in that sense for the success of the project. Understand the context as well. What is influencing this project? And I think we spoke about the PESTLE model when we were talking about selling. So the process, so anything that is external to the project that might have an influence on it, like the political scenario, the economic scenario, the social scenario, the technology, obviously we just talked about that, the legal, any implication that you need to, legally bound, basically, if you are legally bound in some way, so to do something. And also the ethical, the environmental, so all the external factors that can influence your success. It's important as well to speak to people while you are carrying out your project, especially at the beginning. Again, a lot of work needs to be done at the beginning, but I promise if you put the work in at the beginning, it's going to be so much easier to project manage your project. So you speak to people to understand the hidden risks and opportunities, because again, when you speak to people, you have the double whammy of understanding better the project, but also, if you do it well, to gain their trust in someone who is external, likely. And so it's important for people to feel listened to, but in that way, you're going to understand better the project. It's also important, if you're doing a risk log, to identify the probability of that particular risk from happening. So what's to happen? So is it going to be, no chance it's going to happen? Is it high likelihood? And what are you going to do? What is your risk management strategy for that? So it's very important, and I know it sounds tedious and horrendous, at least unless you are a completely analytical person, but risk logs sound boring, but it's so important. Risk management needs to be done and planned and reviewed on a regular basis, and only that way you're gonna keep any risks up, at bay. Finally, how do you accelerate your success? Until this point, we talked about risks and threats and horrible things that can happen. But actually, there is a little recipe that is going to allow you, as a sustainability professional, to be successful in the process of a project. And I think this is like a little bit of a golden nugget from a very experienced sustainability professional that I met a couple of years ago, and that's Kartik Akmania from Sweco. And Kartik's recipe, be mindful, and probably you read it in the book, that Kartik has won all the prizes and awards in the world for being, so good at his job. So Kartik's recipe is to innovate. And in a way, sustainability implies that you innovate because you're trying to find a solution to an age-old problem, for example, or something that has been always addressed in a non-sustainable way. Or maybe you are creating something completely new, like a new product. That innovation is part of having sustainability as your core quality metric. So, Kartik is a bit of a genius because he comes up with his own systems. However, innovation is important, and that means you need to start thinking outside the box and speaking to people and try and find solutions which are alternative to what you've always done. That way, you're going to have a much better, I mean, obviously there are risks, as like we were saying with technology, but you also have a big chance to have a proper success. The other thing for accelerating your success is to look at any process so any project in terms of life cycle. And so you look at the product that you're going to end up with at the end of the project from the beginning until the end of life and beyond. Okay, so LCA, or life cycle assessment, is a key element for any sustainability project to try and have the best possible product with the least impact on the environment. And that's the key differentiator with normal project, like we were saying at the beginning. Life cycle assessment means that you go beyond the end of the project. When you have, remember the book, what is the life of the book after the project is finished? How is it going to end up? What is it going to be after? Hopefully it's not going to end up in landfill. What's going to happen to it? So it's very, very important, life cycle assessment. Third element, collaboration, which we spoke about a minute ago. Collaborate as part of your team. Have your team working together means less mistakes, means a better working environment, means a more sustainable product. Because again, if you reduce the mistakes, if you collaborate to brainstorm, you have a much richer product at the end. You have a much better, stronger product at the end. So innovation, LCA, and collaboration as the three ingredients of Kartik Amrania's recipe for sustainability success. And that's the way of making sustainability the new business as usual. So the more you do this, the more sustainability is going to become a no-brainer. And finally, feedback loop. So what are you learning from your past mistakes? Like I was saying before, many architects, for example, don't go back and look at the buildings they build. So they don't learn, they keep on doing the same mistakes. So it's very, very important to go back to your project, see how it went, and learn from your mistakes. That's something that it's important and is not done enough. So this particular chapter ends with very practical tips on how to organize your day, if you want, because you will, the more you manage to be productive in your day, the better will be your results as a project manager, as a sustainability professional in general. It's very, very important to set, first of all, a priority system. So look at this. Imagine that you come into the office, or maybe, these days you wake up and you just go to the living room where you got your desk, if you're working from home, and you start with your emails. You open your computer and you start reading your emails. 2 hours later, you're still reading your emails. You haven't started what you were meant to be doing. And then you think, oh, what should I do today? And you decide on the spot that you need to, start your project or call someone within the project team, whatever it is. Midday comes, you haven't done anything, maybe you're still in your PJs. And then lunch, and then you're tired because everyone has a slump, after lunch. Okay, so effectively, if you prioritize your day in the right way, and there are many, many ways, we teach them all in the SustainABLE Mastermind, because prioritization, productivity is a key element in what I teach in the Mastermind, SustainABLE Mastermind. But just to give you like a brief, overview of what you can do immediately and apply to your day-to-day job, it's important to understand priorities. So start from something that is called the Ivy Lee method, because Ivy Lee, some 100+ years ago, was an expert, a consultant that got paid really good money to come up with a super simple solution. The super simple solution is have a to-do list. Duh, okay, you will think like, yeah, okay, I know that, I got that. But the list needs to be no longer than 6 items. I would say less than that. It needs to be prepared the day before, so that when you wake up the day after, you reach the office, or you need to reach your living room, you already know what you need to do. What is the first item in order of priority in your list that you need to tackle? You need to start with the most important thing. You don't have to have 1,000,001 tasks in your to-do list. In fact, 6, as I said, is probably maximum. I usually have 4 or 5. And you shouldn't start with your emails, and no multitasking whatsoever. So sometimes to focus, because I get quite distracted quite easily, I close all the windows in my computer. I just use the one I'm using. And I put my phone away from me, because that's my biggest source of distraction. And I just work on the first task. Now, you might like that, you might not like that, but I wake up at silly o'clock, meaning 4:30, 5:30, to try and do my most important task of the day early in the morning. Because I got kids and I get distracted a lot. In the last 6 months, to be completely honest, my productivity with kids at home and all that happened hasn't been, brilliant. So I have to have my mind super fresh, and that's only happening at first thing in the morning. And I have to at least achieve 1 or 2 very important things for my day. And I do that. So I wake up super early. By 7 o'clock, I've done the most important thing, if not 2. That's it. And then even if the whole day goes pear-shaped, for goodness sake, I went to a dinosaur park the other day, but early in the morning, I've done everything I had to do. But yeah, I'm on holiday. Sort of, I'm working. So do the most important thing first, and some say eat the frog. I don't remember what your author said that, but eat the frog first thing in the morning, and then it doesn't matter if the rest of the day goes pear-shaped. If you have difficulties keeping your focus, then perhaps you can use the Pomodoro technique, or one of the many apps that you can find, or Chrome extensions, to keep your concentration going. I like the Pomodoro technique because it's super simple. You can add it to Chrome, you can have it on your phone or whatever. You can even have a kitchen timer, which is where the name comes from. Pomodoro in Italian is tomato. And you set it for 25 minutes. So you do 25 minutes of super intense focus work. And then you do 5 minutes of relax, and you keep your eyes away from the screen. You have a comfort break, you eat something, whatever. You do a little, press up, whatever you like. Then you go back for another 25 minutes and 5 minutes break. That way, in 2 hours, you probably have achieved 1,000,000 things more than you would have if you were multitasking. So laser focus, monotasking is the key to success. And think about that. If you manage to achieve 1 or 2 very important things in your day, every day, by the end of your month, you have a minimum of 40 important things done. That's incredible. If you really manage to keep up with that rhythm of doing 2 important things every day, in line with your values, in line with your project, in line with your goals, then you'll be there in no time. So it's really a matter of tweaking perhaps your routines a little bit. In your project, what are the most important things to achieve? And that's the thing you need to focus on. Once you understand what the goal is, then you can break it into action. That's the other thing why people are not productive sometimes, because they said, oh, I want to qualify, as an energy assessor. Okay, brilliant. How do you get there? When do you want to do it? The first thing would be to identify when is the course, for example, or the exam you have to do. Perfect. Work backwards and think about all the tasks and actions that you need to put in place in order to get there in the quickest, most productive and straightforward way. People don't do that. People don't, put, for example, in their to-do list very vague references to what they have to do. Well, actually, you need to be action-oriented. You need to have actions in your to-do list. So call such and such. Check the website of the energy assessor body to see when the exam is. Start writing your dissertation with chapter 1. So it needs to be super precise. Write your dissertation chapter 1. I don't know, study the first 4 chapters of the manual, etc., etc. So you need to be super precise, because your brain, A, tries to escape when something is vague, and so, you know, you find yourself procrastinating. Well, if you have bite-sized chunks of tasks and action, that your brain can think like, oh, that's easy, I can do it very quickly. In fact, one of the tips there is to make your actions less than 30 minutes long, because your brain will think it's easy enough to do very quickly. If it's something super daunting, like, oh, I have to get my qualification as an energy assessor, but you don't have a plan to get there, and tasks to get there, and actions to get there, you probably will never do it, or you put it off and off and off, and you procrastinate until, you know, God knows when. So there is another method when you're confused, especially in projects, when you don't know what's priority and what's not. I usually do a brain dump. So I literally take a piece of paper and a pencil, and, you know, as technological as this, I think, you know, this is the way to do things that, you know, actually your brain thinks, well, your brain thinks better when you do things by hand and when you write by hand. So that's very useful to keep in mind. Take a piece of paper, a pen or a pencil, and write down all the things that are in your mind that you need to do in association with a project. It happens to me to do it at night, because maybe I go to bed and I can't sleep because I'm thinking of all the things I have to do. I keep pen and paper next to me, next to my bed, and I just brain dump everything. And that way I fall asleep quite easily, because my brain has, you know, released all my thoughts into paper. So use the brain dump method to put down all the things you need to do. And only after that, you start to putting them in order of priority. And I promise that's the simplest, most achievable and actionable thing you can do to put clarity in your projects, but also in your day-to-day working life. How do you prioritize though? Because sometimes you're like, oh yeah, this is important, I should do it because my boss asked me to do it. Okay, well, there is another method, which I cover in the book, which is the Eisenhower matrix. So once you have your list of things that you think you have to do for a project, decide what is crucial and you need to do now, so it's also urgent. What is crucial, but you can do later, because maybe it's not something you need to do now. What is crucial, actually, what is not crucial, but you need to do now, so it's urgent but not important. And what is not crucial and you can do later. Now, I tell you what, the things that they need to be right at the top of your to-do list in the morning have to be the crucial do now things. So things that are important and urgent. If something is important but you need to do it later, put it in your calendar. Put a reminder to do it at the right time, so you don't lose that important thing. If it's something not crucial, but you need to do it now for some reason, then try and see whether someone else can do it for you and delegate. That's something to delegate. If you're not key to that, of course. If something is not crucial and you can do it later, don't do it. What is it doing on your to-do list? Just forget about it. And one final thing to mention is Pareto principle. Actually, a couple of things left. Pareto principle is try and do the 20% of things that are going to give you the 80% of results. That's apparently a proportion 20-80 that it works for pretty much everything in life. So if you manage to doing your famous 6-item to-do list, the first 2 things, or one thing, then you're there. Basically, this is what will make you progress. Another thing to mention is any project management systems, tools like online, tasks app like Asana, Trello, or even Google Sheet, if you like that. Use them at the right time. So start first with your brain, a pen and paper, I would say, and then you can by any means use any of this to track progress, to share with your team. Is very important. So I think there is a lot of value in using these online project management systems to keep track of your progress. Finally, just a note on gathering and recording evidence for audits. So if you are a project manager who also has to do audits, or for example, if you're doing BREEAM or LEED assessment for buildings, then you will have a bunch of evidence to produce at the end of the project. Then be careful, like gather and collect and record information as you go along. Don't leave it at the last minute, because that's a sure recipe for failure. You know, there is nothing worse than that. Absolutely nothing worse than that. You're going to be absolutely overwhelmed. So that was it, guys. Spot on the hour. Do you have any questions? And again, if the live chat doesn't work, I've got LinkedIn open if you want to pop a question there. But yeah, I mean, this is the end. It's a bit sad. I really enjoyed the book club, and I hope that this has been, you know, a valuable resource, and it will be a valuable resource for someone out there. Obviously, if you haven't bought the book, please do. You know, it's quite a nice book. It got lots of nice reviews. And the other thing is, if you want to implement all the stuff that we discussed in the last 6 weeks in your career, in your life, do consider joining the SustainABLE Mastermind, because we got through all of this in details. We look at your own situation. You're going to get me, you know, you're going to have me as a coach to guide you through this process. We got lots and lots of really good results from the people that are, you know, they're doing the mastermind at the moment. Plenty of testimonials. So let me know and I can share them with you. Or you can speak to them. You know, they're normal people doing, you know, going about their lives, but they're really achieving a lot of good stuff. So I'd say, you know, if you're happy to do that, please get in touch, or, you know, you've got the code below to get your discount, or join us next Tuesday for the free webinar where I'm going to explain everything. Log into the website and join the webinar. And yeah, and I hope you enjoyed the SustainABLE Summer Book Club. I hope it was useful. And yeah, please do let me know if you have any comments or any questions whatsoever, and I'm going to be really happy to answer them. So pop them in the comments below if you're not live right now. Okay, so it's been a big pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me during this summer, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful life from this point onwards. And don't forget, unleash your green gorilla. Bye.